SSP TV and the Hazleton Standard Speaker present Good Sports with Dave and Ken.
Welcome to the second episode of Good Sports with Dave and Ken. Dave Seaman, Standard Speaker Sports Editor over here. I'm Ken Kara, the Sports Director at SSP TV, and Nick Gaudiano joins us now. He is the throws coach at Hazleton Area High School. We're at the track. We're on location today, Dave. This is nice. I could get, and we got beautiful. We waited until the end of spring sports season to come out. Well, you guys suffered a little bit because I'm sure it wasn't too great weather-wise. But Dave, when we showed up here today, I said, all right, so what's the plan? We'll talk to one or two coaches. You said, no, we're talking to all the coaches. Ken, why did you think that was so important?
Well, they all bring something different to the table. I mean, these coaches have been around a long time. They have experience, and it's why our athletes excel at the district and then in the state level. I mean, you have somebody like Nick Gaudiano, better known as G. I know a long time as G, and he's a throws coach for a long time, and he imparts his wisdom in many different ways to his athletes, and they speak fondly of him. And from personal experience, I know my daughters both worked under him, and they speak nothing but good things about him, and he's a great guy to interview, and I figured he'd be a great first person to talk to.
All right, and Nick, I was here, I think Kayla Merkel I was covering, and I was getting all video of her, and you were just floating around the cage. I think it was the first time I met you, possibly, and she said, no, this is the guy you want to talk to. She's like, before you even do my interview, please talk to my throws coach. Does that mean a lot to you that the kids they have that high respect for you?
It does mean a lot because other than trying to pass along javelin stuff, you like to teach life lessons to the kids, which is more important when they go out into the world. They need more of the life things to throw something.
And then as my daughters got older and they got involved in track and field, I just saw how much he works and he cares about the kids, because he, it's not only during the season, it's off season as well. And to be good at something, you have to, commit to it. And he made sure they committed to it, even though they were doing other sports. He found time for them anytime. You wanted to go throw with Coach G, he was available for them, and I can't thank him enough.
What was your background? I mean, were you a thrower, or how did you get into all this?
My daughter, Bernadette, was a shot putter and a javelin thrower, and so I would obviously go to every meet. And then when they put the school up, when they merged, then they picked all new coaches, and Freddie Barletta, who got the head coaching job, chose me as the throws coach because I had a little bit of background in the shot put and stuff. And that's how I got started.
How do you begin to learn how to teach to be a throws coach? How did you get your background, or did you just learn from experience?
You start out watching, going to invitationals, and reading a lot, because as the kids get better, you better get better, because they start to teach you, or you know what I mean. You have to be up on your game, because the athletes definitely are getting better, and so if you don't up your game, you're not going to do the athletes any good. Because you'll still be stuck doing something. Maybe some new technique comes out and you're not aware of it, and so you gotta keep up with the stuff.
Right, you talk about technique. I mean, that people just see the throw, an athlete throw the javelin or the shot put or into the discus cage, but there's a lot of technique involved in this too, and it takes a lot of time to perfect that technique. And just tell us how much work that really goes into that. Then.
Well, the way I put it in order is technique first, most important. Flexibility second. Strength third. I don't emphasize too much strength, although we like to have an off-season program, but it's hard because a lot of the other kids do other sports. Now, unlike Kayla Merkel, she dedicated herself, who by the way just won the Atlantic 10 conference.
Really?
Yes, she did. So congrats to Kayla. But she dedicated herself to track alone. And it's hard because the ones basketball, we're always fighting with basketball, and sometimes you don't really have the conditioning in basketball that's needed for track. Like in the off season, you would go in the weight room. Maybe the summer program would be out here throwing until maybe September, and then do a 3-month weightlifting program, and then go into our conditioning in January, and then you're good to go. Because if you wait till the season starts, it's too late. It really is. So that's why a program is so important.
You seem like you have a very fun personality. I mean, I've been around you 2 or 3 times where I've actually talked with you, and it just seemed like a good time. You seem like the kids have a good time. Is that part of it too? Do you bring your personality into coaching a little bit? Do you think that helps keep them loose or keep them coming back or more focused?
Well, yesterday, when for this meet, because it was such a big meet with Dallas, I said I'm going to tell you a story, and I started out with Once Upon a Time, but that didn't go out too good. But they laughed, so it got them loose. But other than that, yes, you have to keep them relaxed, because most sports people tell you when you tighten up, the first thing that tightens up is your shoulders, and that's a death to a thrower. So you got to keep them loose.
You talk about technique, though, and you've been rewarded, too, like you said, with a lot of great athletes that come through there. Is that the biggest reward when you see them come away with a district championship, a medal, and then see them go on to states, too? Is there any better reward for a coach?
There is no better reward, and when your daughter gave us our first medal at states on her last throw, that's a feeling that can't be duplicated, that first medal. And it was funny because there the discus is right next to the javelin. So she was ready. She needed a 125 to get a medal. So she's going down the runway, and all of a sudden this girl in a discus cage goes, ah! She yells out and throws it, and Jillian stops. So she reset, backed up, and threw, and she threw 125. Then that's won her the medal. And I said, Jay, because I always called her Jay, I said, how did you ever stop in the middle of your throw with that girl yelling? She said, I never heard nobody yelling. So
that's focus.
So focused.
Yeah.
Talking about Dave's daughter, Jillian Seaman, where did she finish in states that year? She got a medal, seventh.
Yeah, she finished seventh, but then after her, you had people like Julia Franzosa win the first state championship. Tell us about what that, I mean, everything you worked for.
Julia, I remember her first throw went out of bounds, and she was seated, I think, going in about fifth. And her second throw was 137 and some change, and it held. It held for we were all counting down, like how many throws until it's over? 10, and another one throw, 9, and we're going down, and finally came to the last throw, and they didn't beat the 137. But maybe the most exciting one was when Kayla Merkel, she was thrown against the girl from Connellsville, who was not only the best javelin thrower in PA that year, she was the United States champion. As a freshman, she threw 184 feet. Like, we were thinking, like, what planet is this girl from, right? So in her sophomore year, I believe, she ruined her elbow. So she had Tommy John surgery. It took her maybe that whole junior season to recover, but she threw in enough meets to qualify for states. So we're at states. Kayla busts out a 147 right off the bat. So this girl, out of bounds. She got one in bounds, enough to make finals. Out of bounds again. She throws 130 something. Nobody else is close to this 147. So we're all licking our chops, right? The girl from Connellsville, her last throw, 164. So Kayla took the silver medal, but silver at states, you
can't complain about that.
Can't complain about that. So,
I get to do this job year in and year out. I'm not coaching, but I'll tell you what, it gets kind of cyclical. You're like, okay, we have the playoffs now. You got districts at this time. But why I love it and why I keep coming back to it, I mean, the kids' personalities, the athletes' personalities, I should say, they're all different. They're a lot of fun to interact with. Is that like that for you, too, in your coaching job? You kind of got the steps you go through every year, but each year it's a new group of athletes, so it's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun, and all personalities are different. Yeah. So you have to put yourself on that, level to find out what you can do to make the best come out of that person, and that's really important.
This year, Katera Leggett, you have another good thrower there on the girls' team. We just talk about her a little bit and how she's been. Is she a senior? What year is she now?
Katera is a senior. What a great kid. We had some trouble this year because we didn't really do our winter workout, and she got herself a job, and it took a little bit away from practice, but she's starting to come back now. I never forget, we got her from Neshaminy.
Yeah.
And Otter called me up, Coach Otterbein, and he said, there's a girl that wants to come out for the team, and she, I never get throwers. They're usually the track. And he said she's a thrower, and she was at States. I said, where is she right now? It was about 8 o'clock at night. He said, I don't know where she is. I said, well, have her at the track tomorrow. So she came over in her school clothes, right? I said, I brought a shot out right away. I said, could you throw it? She said, well, yeah, I'm in my school clothes. I can't. So she powered through a 35-foot. I said, that's great. I said, sign her up. So, but yeah, she's been a joy. I mean, she's just a tough kid, and we're going to miss her. It's hard, throwing 36. She threw at States last year. She missed the medal by an inch. The girl on her last throw inched her. I hate to be inched. I like the inch, but I don't like to be inched. Our freshman javelin thrower,
okay,
Abby Hanks, she went through the season undefeated as a freshman, and also at one of the relays. So she's totally undefeated. So she's a tough kid. She has the will of the champions, like your daughter and Franzosa and all them girls, even the Klatch twins, and all going back. They have that will that they don't want to lose. And
That's something you can't teach.
no, and an example of that is the Berwick came here to play, and up to that point, Abby had only thrown 109, which, you expect. That's good for a freshman. The first Berwick girl comes up, pops a 118. The other Berwick girl comes, throws 114. Abby's second throw, 118. So, and then she finally threw 119 to win. So it's like 10 feet more in that day than what you would normally throw, and you just don't see that.
Kids like that relish the challenge.
Yes.
They want to be pushed.
And that's a good thing. So, to her chapter's just being written. So we got 3 more years, and hopefully we have districts and states.
Well, Coach Gaudiano, thank you so much for your time, and we'll see him around the track. Magically appearing in the chair to the left of me right now, girls coach Mark Otterbein. And Coach, can I ask a silly question to start off? Someone who's come to cover practices once or twice. Your daughter did this, so excuse my silly question. How does track practice work? We just talked with the throws coach. The kids seem like they do their own things. They're motivated sometimes, but what is a track practice like? How do you orchestrate all this? It seems like a lot.
Right. Well, we start off, and the girls stretch, and they do their drills, and then we divide them up into who's a jumper, who's a hurdler, who's a sprinter, and we give them things to do, and we send them out and we do it. We try to stay with as many groups as we can. With 3 coaches, you're not going to get around to every group on their own. Track's a little bit different. You have 60-some people on the team, and you can't watch all 63 of them, so they really have to be self-motivated. I mean, we tell them what we expect them to do. If I'm going to be with the hurdlers today, then the sprinters know they may have to do, 6 100s, 3 200s, and you're hoping that they do it. You look over once in a while to see that they are, but they all do. It's very difficult, but the girls, to do track, you really have to be self-motivated, because you're not going to have a coach there every minute with you. As Dave knows, both his daughters did it.
Yeah, I was going to say that. It seems like you have to be self-motivated, and if the coaches aren't on you, then when you get to the meet, it's just that you don't perform, and that's just how it is.
We tell them that one of my famous phrases is, you only get out of it what you put into it. So if you're going to dog it because a coach isn't watching you, it's going to show up when you go to perform. And thank God, we haven't had that at all this year.
How long have you been coaching now?
This is my 12th year on the varsity level, and actually 7 on the junior high level. So this is year 19.
Yeah, 20 years.
Nice. How did you get started? How did you get into this? Did you have a track background?
This is a funny story.
Oh, good. I'm glad I asked.
It's a funny story. Both my son and my daughter did cross country, did track. They were runners, so I was at every meet. Yeah, so I knew a little bit about it. So I'll never forget it. It was a Sunday evening, and Coach Barletta calls me. He says, "Hey, I'm at a birthday party," he said, "with a friend of yours, Rick Barletta." He said, "I need a junior high head track coach." He said, "Give you a call." I said, "Freddie," I said, "I have no experience at this." I said, I know some of the things just from watching. I said, my both kids run and that. And he said, the thing of a head coach, he said, is organization. He said, you get organization. He said, I will teach you. He said, I'm going to give you a very good assistant coach. He said, Tom Razwich, he said, it was excellent. He said, and he will teach you. He said, between he and I, we will teach you to be a junior high coach. He said, even though you don't know all the events. And that's how it happened, and I learned. And then, after that, Freddie became the athletic director, and I get the next call, and he said, well, the head coaching job of senior high is yours if you want it. So it was really odd the way it happened, from somebody mentioning my name at a birthday party to be a coach.
So when Mr. Barletta's name comes up on your phone, you got to hesitate a second or say, what's the next thing that's going to happen here? I think often, Dave, when we talk about helping young men and young women, when I was thinking about maybe helping out being a soccer coach, I got so nervous because I thought, I played, but I don't know these things. But maybe you don't need all of that. You just need organization and the will to help out.
Sure. I mean, I was very hesitant at first on the phone. I said, Freddie, you really sure you really want me? And he said, yeah. He said, you know about the sport. He said, I know you're teacher, you're organized. And he said, you have half the battle won. And he said, and as far as the things you need to know, it's the actual coaching of the hurdles and that. He said, we'll teach you all that.
Is it okay to learn from the kids? Even as a teacher, I think as a teacher I'd be intimidated because I think, I don't want to get something wrong in front of the kids. But is it okay to learn from the kids?
Learn from the kids. And
being in the classroom, too.
Yeah, you always learn. And I'm going to bring up, again, Dave's daughter, Jill, at the hurdles. I had her senior year, and she taught me so much at the hurdles because, again, it was like my first year as head head coach, and you always learn. Emily Malone a couple years ago, an outstanding athlete, and she was going to camps over the summer and stuff like that, and she'd come back and tell me some of the things that they have her do. So you're always learning. You can learn a lot from the athletes.
I think one of the challenges you have as a coach, though, is like getting the right collection. I mean, you have a lot of kids coming in even as ninth graders, like which kids to bring up as ninth graders, and then mix them up with the other kids you have coming back in the following year too. And that must be a challenge as a coach.
It's very difficult, and the way our coaching staff does it is we will bring up a ninth grader if we know we're going to use them. We figure if you're not going to use them that much on the senior high level, leave them at ninth grade where they're in every meet and they'll get that experience. I mean, why bring them up if you're not going to put them in every meet and they're not getting any experience? So we look to see, who graduated, where do we need help this year? Do we need help in the distance? Do we need help in the hurdles? Do we need help in the jab? And that's how we look to bring people up. And sometime, to be honest with you, the ninth graders will say to me, "Hey, Coach, I should have been brought up." And I said, yes, you're as good as so-and-so, but you're an event where we already have 4 solid people, so we figured there's no sense of bringing you up and not putting you in events when you can stay on the middle school level and be in every event and gain experience. So that's a good point, Dave. That's a hard decision, whether to bring up a ninth grade or not, but that's the way we do it on this coaching staff.
I'm sure a lot has changed since that birthday party you were at. I mean,
Sure.
just
I wasn't even at it. A friend of
mine
mine was
talking about you.
Yeah,
Now I got
they were
it.
talking about you, and I got a call.
And then see, but what about in the world of track and field? How have you seen it change? I mean, is it the same kind of from when you first started coaching?
Well, the athletes are so much faster today. Yes.
Why do you think that is? I mean, what is? Is it just the training they do?
The training, they do so much training anymore, and they go out, they go to camps, and that. When I first started, you'd never hear of a kid going to track and field camp. It just wasn't the thing to do. Everybody wanted to be on the basketball team or the football team.
Well, was track and field like the sport to stay in shape? Would that be something fair to say?
That is exactly, and in fact, I use that as a pitch still when I talk to the people in the elementary schools and the 7th and 8th graders. I said, look, even if you're a real good basketball player, I said, if you're not doing anything in the spring, I said, give track a try. It's an excellent way to stay in shape. And I'm going to bring up another name. I'll never forget it, Alyssa Sitch.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Alyssa Sitch, very good basketball player. And I remember talking to her. And she said, I'm not sure I want to do track. And I said, Alyssa, I said, you're so athletic. I said, do you do anything in the spring? She said, no. I said, give track a shot. Well, Alyssa became one of our best hurdlers and jumpers.
That's incredible. And let's talk about some of the athletes you have on the team this year. I only get to be around the team maybe once a year as I run around, but I read all the articles in the Standard
Steve
Speaker.
Stallone does a fantastic
job. You should
job.
too, Steve Stallone.
Steve does an excellent job.
One name I continue to read, I believe Julian Bookman is a senior this year, correct?
Jillian Bookman is a junior.
Junior.
Jillian is a junior.
Class we were talking about.
Yeah, Jillian is a junior. We only have 7 seniors on the team this year, so we are young. But Jillian, you won't find anybody that works as hard as Jillian does. I mean, she's here all the time and working. You'll see her come down. Even after practice, she'll still be doing stuff. And if you read Steve's article in the newspaper on her, how before practice we actually have to slow her down because we're afraid by the time practice starts. And it shows. That's why she gets the places she does in the time she does. We have Sarah Myers, who as a distance runner has really come along. She's now become one of the best 3,200 runners in the district. She does an excellent job there.
You said that there, people maybe who are doing this to stay in shape, or they weren't doing it before high school or the varsity teams. Why do they fall in love with it? I don't know about. I know your son, Tommy, and I see he's still, I think, running. What do you think makes people fall in love with it and say, "Well, this was a great decision"?
You know what? That's hard to answer.
Why did you fall in love with it? You stayed with it. You could have left.
Probably,
kids
yeah. Well, I stayed with it. The first year I started coaching, and I realized, from a coaching standpoint, the kids we have are fantastic, not just in athletics. You look at their academics, you look at their behavior. Believe me, in all the years I'm coaching, I could count the problems on one hand, less than one hand. And that's how I felt about it. I said, these are great kids to be around.
It's a great social setting, too. You look at the kids here. this is a great representation of the Hazleton area that we have right
It
now.
sure
viewers.
is.
I mean,
And
because
when they say
athletes of all
our kids
backgrounds.
in the Hazleton area, I'd like somebody to come down here and watch these kids. When you have 200 and some kids here every day working as hard as they can in all kinds of weather, as you said.
But I want to ask you one last thing. You've been on the coaching staff for a while. I'm sure you've been around some amazing athletes. Is there still a performance or something that makes you scratch your head and go, I can't believe I just saw that? Or anything that comes to your mind right now as I ask you the question?
There's so much performance, but this year has to be with two of our freshmen. One was the day we saw, and I think Coach G mentioned this, Abby Hanks, the freshman, throw the jab, 121 some feet or 122, whatever it was that day. And actually yesterday, Lauren Festa, another freshman, she was jumping 31s, 32s in the triple. Yesterday, 34 and a quarter, almost 2 feet better.
Was that picture in the Standard Speaker?
Yes, it was.
That was a
in
great
the
picture too. Did Steve take that?
No,
or so? Okay, all right.
no.
Because I saw Steve. All right. Well, there was a very great picture of that. If you could look it up in the Standard Speaker for jumping. Well, this has been a pleasure, Coach Otterbein. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Kenny.
Dave Seaman, Standard Speaker sports editor, Ken Carr with SSP TV, back with another member of the girls coaching staff here at Hazleton Area High School Track and Field, Mr. Tom Kostick. I'm doing distance and mid-distance, and his reputation precedes him, Dave, because, I mean, we've had you on SSP TV before talking about the Bishop Hafey cross-country team and then Marion. We were talking with Coach Otterbein a bit about coaching philosophy. You had a background as a runner coming into coaching cross-country and that, but what have you learned about being a coach over these years as you transition to track? I know it's still running, but I mean, is there, I don't want to say a secret to it, but is there something that makes you a good coach?
Well, I don't know.
About you a good coach. So what makes a good coach in general?
A good, I would say I could never coach the way I was coached. That's the first lesson I learned as a coach. Totally different environment, totally different generation.
When you say, how were you coached?
Hard,
Hard,
discipline and hard. A Bobby Knight style kind of thing. Today, you couldn't get away with that today, but you don't have to.
I was gonna say,
No, you could achieve the same goals with a different style. And I think that was the first lesson I learned. And I made sure I was communicating to the generation I was trying to get across to. So I think communication at one, because I really wasn't a track person. We didn't have track in high school back then. I learned how to run through the service, United States Air Force, proud to serve.
So you say I learned how to run because you were on the running teams, or is it just like we have to run because we're in the service?
No, believe it or not, I was a basketball player back in high school, so I just learned how to run to play basketball, and then in the service, it was different. We competed in local races as a team, our unit, this, that, and then next thing you know, I was running some marathons, and I just like running. And then the opportunity that Bishop Hafey opened up, they needed a coach. I decided, okay, I'll try it, when I first started, and I've been with it ever since.
Were you a tough coach ever? I mean, you mentioned Bobby Knight, and since I've known, I had Mr. Kostick as a religion teacher at Bishop Hafey. I always wanted to be on the cross-country team. The thing there was Spirit of the Monk. You seemed like you were kind of relaxed as it. Could you?
I was.
I mean, yeah.
I wasn't loud, or I don't think I was loud. But like I said, I think I communicated what I needed to communicate in my own style. And a wise person once told me, be yourself, and you should experience some success with that. So
the differences between teaching a sprinter and someone who's doing mid-distance or distance, especially when I hear the term mid-distance as I got more and more familiar with track, how does that translate? I mean, is there real big differences there?
Yes, there is. I mean, mostly the sprinters aren't doing as much. They're doing more speed work. They have a small base, but again, they're working with speed.
So you don't explode.
Most of the kids that I work with are probably on the cross-country team. Not everybody, but for the most part they are. They're either playing field hockey in the fall. If they're not running cross-country, they're doing other sports, and then they come out, like a couple swimmers come out and things like that. So any kind of cardiovascular workouts that kids are doing with any sport, when they show up for track, it's not too hard to make the adjustment, give them the right workout, train them in that way, and then they seem to do it. A mid-distance would be, I would say, 800, you're really stretching a 400 because that's a sprint today. An 800 twice around, then you got the 16, which is the mile, and then the 32, which is the 2.
Right. That's one thing I always admired about cross country, long distance athlete. I think it's a different breed of athlete. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, I mean, especially today. I mean, when you're looking at the times, there's girls. They're already breaking 16. Girls are high school girls. They're high 15s. I mean, that's incredible. You're lucky if you can find boys that can run in the 15s, let alone having girls do it. It's incredible. They're just getting better and better. Training's getting better. It seems to be more of a circuit kind of training. They're doing weightlifting. They're doing strength training. They're doing speed work. They're doing cardio. I mean, there's just a whole bunch of stuff being added right now where if you have any kind of talent, you're at the top.
And how did that training compare to like when you first started coaching?
Oh, I remember, 18s was a terrific time back in the early 90s. Someone running 18s, 17s is exceptional. Now they're 16s, 15s. Some boys are high 14s. I mean, at states you were lucky to get a couple in the low 16s. Now the top 15 were running 15:30 and up. They were all under 16. Top 15. So it's changed over the years, but it's getting better, and the athletes are getting better. They're you know what I think they're doing? I think they're learning how to train properly.
Yeah, it seems like there's more knowledge out there now about, I think runners are always aware of their body, but now there's more knowledge of, hey, you shouldn't do this when you're training, and hey, this is a better idea, and they come with that knowledge that
Absolutely.
You don't have to impart it into them. They're already pre-programmed.
Absolutely. But the one thing, if I could pass it on to any of the younger kids, is you still have to try to make it fun for the young kids. They're not Olympians yet. They're kids, so if you can tell them to go break up their routine, go biking, off training, do something different, even a different season. Take some time, go play golf, go play tennis, do whatever, but don't do this sport. Get away from it a little bit, then come back to it.
As long as you're doing something.
I think as long as you're doing something, I think that's good for the young kids.
I forget what my other question was going to be, but I want to ask you this, because I've gotten so many psychology lessons from you, Mr. Kostick. Do you think that helps a little bit more now as kids are talking more about psychology and that? I mean, running seems like a psychological sport that you could clear your mind and there's more understanding on that front?
Well, I'll tell you what, ask the professionals. They all have a sports psychologist. So it's a question of putting yourself, when we were young, it was called the zone. You're in the zone. I remember in basketball where the basket was like a stripping hole. You couldn't miss. You close your eyes, throw it at the basket somewhere, and it went in. I mean, whenever you're there, it's just phenomenal. Now, how to get there? That's the hard part. And psychologically, you have to be prepared too. It's not just physical. It's a lot mental too.
Can I steal that? Because if there ever was a great Coal-Region sports reference, the basket was like a stripping hole. That's a great one. I remember my other question. You said you have to make it fun for the younger kids. Correct. How do you get kids to come out who sign up for a team and then say, oh, we're going to go for a 3-mile run, and this is how I make it? How do you make running fun for people?
Well, you know what? After we do a hard workout, I let them go. A lot of times, sometimes we'll make a Rita's run. So everyone will bring money. They'll run to Rita's. They'll get something, and they'll come back. I could always tell because their lips are green and blue. And I'll never forget the story. Beth Sharkey, we were out running, and this is where I discovered everything. And I went up to her, and she had braces on at the time. And I go, Beth, how was that donut run? Mr. Gontic, what donut run? Here she had the sprinkles in her braces. I was loving it.
Beth Sharkey was a phenomenal cross-country runner, right?
Yes,
Went on to run in college.
Yeah, she ran for Penn State. She did very well. So, so making it fun, Reader's Run for the track kids, a donut run for the cross-country kids.
Well, Mr. Kostick, we thank you for your time today. Always appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Talk more.
Do a great job. Thank you so much.
Now joining us, coach of the boys team, Lou Gunderman, and also I think I'm sitting between two members of the Hazleton Area Sports Hall of Fame, right? So congratulations, guys.
Well, thank you.
I am honored.
Just shows you to let anybody in.
That's right. You beat me to that one.
And Coach Gunderman, I want to talk to you about your background a little bit. You've loved running for a long time. I read your Hall of Fame article in the Standard Speaker as I was looking up things. I think since you were 12 years old, that article said you started running. How'd you get into it?
Well, one day I was running home from where we were playing out on the mountain, and I always traveled with older boys because I was the youngest of 14, and my brothers were all older than me, and their friends. And one day I was just running along, and I was running with them, and I said to myself, "Gee, I can run with them." And I just decided that was what I was going to do at that point. I just started running.
So it was a self-realization. It was
a self-realization that I'm able to
What
run
mountain? Where you said you were on the mountain?
Well, I lived in Brandonville.
Okay.
And we were between two mountains, and when we played tag or anything, it was like the boundaries were, that mountain and Ringtown and Shepton, that type of thing.
With 13 other siblings that helped to be fast.
Only to the supper table.
One thing to do it, another thing to coach. What made you fall in love with coaching and want to do this for so long? You coach cross country, now still with the track and field team. Why'd you stick with this for so long?
Well, I'll tell you what. Years ago, I used to think that track and field was a pain in the neck.
Why was that?
When I was coaching cross country, track and field was that necessary evil in order to keep my cross country kids running. But since I've given up cross country, about 8 years ago, I guess now, I've fallen in love with track all over again. I mean, track right now is my passion. I really enjoy coaching, and I really like helping the kids,
When I first got here today, we mentioned we're recording this the day after the boys team just captured the Wyoming Valley Conference Division I championship with a win over a very good Dallas team. As soon as I got here, I said, "Good to see you, Coach Gunderman." I said, "Congratulations." You said, "When you have good kids, it's easy." You have some good kids. You really mean that? Like, it makes your job
absolutely. I hear people say about this high school that, how can you stand with being there with all these kids that there's always fights? I said, I don't see that. I see good kids all the time. I don't think I've ever had a fight on the track with these kids. The kids don't fight with each other. They're here to participate in track and field. And if you look at the kids that come out for sports, they're the top 150, 200 kids, most likely in the school, as far as their grades go.
Right, and you talk about other coaches we talked to about this. This team in particular is a great representation of the Hazleton area. Kids of all backgrounds, talent, ability levels, they come together, and it's a great social setting. If people would come to the track, I think they would be surprised, people from this area, what they would see at this track, because I think it is a great microcosm for what we have in this area.
I totally agree. I think it is a great microcosm of what we have, not only here in school, but in our society today. And, they have to learn to live with it. When my son was going to college and he chose Penn State, and we said, "What are you going to such a big place for?" His comment was, "If I can make it at Penn State, I can make it anywhere." And I kind of agree with if the kids can make it here and they can make it on this team, they can go out into life and do well at whatever they want to do.
What's one thing you want your athletes to lead this track with? Whether it's, we talked a lot today about great athletes that are here at the Hazleton Area High School, past and present, but we also heard from some of your coaches about the kids who maybe don't get the headlines that they're so proud of, that are just making strides on their own. What's one thing you really want to instill in them?
I want to instill in them, for those that are runners, the love of running. The love of running, so that 10 years from now I see them and they say, "Coach, I'm still running." And there are a number of them. And one of the young ladies that I coached from West Hazleton when I first started coaching back in the early 1980s, she wasn't the fastest girl on our team. Matter of fact, she was the slowest girl on our team. And she was probably a little bit overweight. But to this day, she's still running, and it changed her lifestyle. It totally changed her lifestyle. So I want them to keep that love of running and the passion for doing something that they can improve themselves on.
You've obviously had a passion for running too. Your background, you've run in marathons in Boston. I don't know about New York, but you've been around, to run in something like that. Talk about that experience that you've had.
Well, Yes, my mother was a runner. You know, I had uncles that were runners. That, you know, I remember hearing my mother talk about my uncle who ran in the Berwick Run. You know, when they first started it years ago. I don't think he was in the first one, but you know, in the 20s he was running, and I thought, well, you know, and once I started, it just grows on you. Somebody says to me, well, I'm going to start running. I said, okay. I said, be careful though. I said, it's habit forming. It's habit forming. And matter of fact, one of the young ladies who graduated a couple of years ago, she got her mother running. And I was running the gorge where I run a lot down in Whitehaven. And I ran into her, and she's still running. She said, I'm running 5 miles a day now. I said, I told you it was habit forming.
And you're still running, right?
Oh, yes.
I mean, yeah, because I hear my friends are runners. They're always like, oh, I know Lou Gunderman. And then they'll say, you're placing, too. You're doing well in running, too.
Yeah.
I mean, you do okay. I mean,
I win my age group in most cases, you know, especially with the local races. And I might finish in the top 5.
With that said, you've had success. I kind of alluded to this too, but how important is it, you know, even if you're not winning, just to be out there and enjoying the run? You still enjoy it. I mean, obviously, or you wouldn't be doing it, I guess.
Well, like I said, it's habit forming. I've fallen in love with it. It's just a great relief.
How do you make a great runner? Let me ask that. Is there a way to do it? I mean, we ask kind of, it seems like each athlete's different. They're kind of out on their own. They have to, you know, really be responsible, have that discipline. But is there something, how do you try to make great runners here?
Well, I was talking to my runners about that just the other day. We were just joking around a little bit, and I said, you sprinters, I said, you have it so easy. I said, look at the distance runners. Look at the distance runners. I said, they're out running. You guys are sitting here, and then I say, okay, time to race. And you get up and you run fast. And they laughed about it, but sprinters are born. I can make them faster, but I can't make them sprinters. They're born sprinters. They have that fast twitch muscle that they get from their parents or their grandparents. You know, the DNA is there. All I have to do is get them out of the block faster, teach them to run more efficiently. But a distance runner, and I always say, distance runner, anybody can be a distance runner. You just have to have intestinal fortitude and put your one foot in front of the other for 2, 3, 4, 5 years in a row.
Talk about teaching other athletes too. I mean, you've had some athletes too, probably not as many as you'd like, come from other sports. But when you see other athletes come in here too, what's the biggest surprise they see when they come on a track team?
How much fun it is. We have fun. And my philosophy with sports has always been, if you're not having fun, you're in the wrong sport. You shouldn't be there. You should be having a good time. Certainly we work hard. There's no doubt about it that these young athletes work hard. But you have to be having fun. And practice should be where it's the most fun. You know, meets are easy. Practice is where it's hard, and that's where you have to be having fun. I see so many kids who don't come out for our program that are involved in other sports, and, well, I'm concentrating on this or I'm concentrating on that. And I said, you're missing out. You're missing out. I said, if you're not a 3-sport athlete in high school, when are you going to get the opportunity to do it again? You know, you're a high school student. Don't lock yourself into one thing. You don't know how good you are in something else until you try it.
And there's so many studies out anymore about the multiple sport athletes too, that how much better they are as they progress. Not only if they run in college or compete at the college level too, but just in life. It makes you more well-rounded, that you're willing to accept new challenges, embrace new challenges. And I think being a part of different sports, you know, helps, you know, student athletes at that end.
Well, there's no doubt about it. I mean, when I was in high school, when you were in high school, you saw the 3, 4-sport athlete all the time. I was a 3-sport athlete. You know, it was just something that you did because coaches didn't want you concentrating on one individual sport all the time. It just wasn't done. And high school, really, junior high, high school, it's too early for that. We don't know what this 7th grader is going to look like in 3 years. And why should we lock them into being a wrestler or being a football player or being a track star when we don't know what they're going to be? You know, that we don't know how tall they're going to be or how short, how fast they're going to be, or, you know, even if they're going to be involved in sports.
Genetics works in a funny way too for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you don't know, you know, are they going to be involved in sports in 3 years? You know, you hear that burnout thing with somebody who wrestles all the time or runs track all the time or does anything all the time, they burn out. And I don't know if it's burnout or not, but it certainly isn't, it doesn't become enjoyable if
you're telling the athlete, you have to be here. They should be telling you, Coach, when am I going to practice again? When can we practice again? Now, when you get older, certainly, you're going to want to do things. I mean, I myself have concentrated on running, all my life, even though I did do wrestling when I was in high school. But, wrestling isn't a sport that you can do when you're 40 years old, but I'm 68 and I'm still running.
I thought it was interesting, actually go back watch our first episode we did of Good Sports, because when I talked with Russ Kanzler, I believe he said the Cubs came to see him in basketball. They didn't even go to his baseball game. They saw him play basketball, and that's where they kind of made their decision about Russ Kanzler.
How much longer are you going to coach?
Well, I look at it every year and take it year by year, and I'm pretty sure I'm coming back next year, and that's all I'm looking at is 1 year at a time at this point. I still enjoy it. My wife is still willing to give up the time, so I'm still willing to be here and help out the kids. I mean, I just enjoy doing that so much, helping out these young people that come here.
I've been following the team this year through the standard speaker and that, winning the division championship, and I kept hearing from Steve Stallone, from you, Coach, about the depth on this boys team, how maybe there's not that one superstar, but this is a team of depth. I think you even said we're not great in all these places, but we're good enough in all of them that we can beat you. Have you had teams like this in the past? Has this been a different kind of team this year?
This is the first year I've had this kind of depth, and it all starts with the middle school and the program that's there, and them coming up, and the coaching that's happened, Coach Zones and Coach Juan, coming up, and them working with the kids. And then, of course, when they get here, we have to have enough coaches to work with it, and then with Coach Panutis and Coach Smo, working with the kids. And when you have that feeder program, and this year we had 140 middle schoolers come out for our program, and there's still 100 that stayed around, and we had 100 secondary kids come out, and we have 70 of them still around. So when you have that kind of depth, with quantity comes quality.
What do you attribute those numbers to at the lower levels? I mean, are kids having that much fun here? The track and field program's growing, or
they're having fun?
Yeah.
They're having fun. We insist upon that. Everyone gets to compete. I hate going to, I'll say, football, and I see 60 on the bench, and there's 15 dirty jerseys, and that's all. That's not right. If you're out for a sport, you should get a chance to compete.
Well, Coach Gunnerman, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time, and I know you're very busy, so we appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Hazleton area senior Sarah Myers joins us right now doing some distance events for the track and field team. Dave, I am the oblivious sports director. I claim it's because I do a lot, but you even mentioned it in the fall. We did an interview, and I sat down and we started doing it, and you're involved in a lot in school, right? I mean, you did what?
Many clubs.
Yeah, well, can you just list some of them? You
Spirit Club, Student Council, I'm the president of the senior class, SAD Club, Psychology Club, History Club,
I wasn't even expecting that many, but my point was we're sitting down to do this interview. It was with you and Ryan Sparky Wolk, and we go through talking, and then she's like, I'm on the cross-country team, too. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize. I should have known. And then I read it, and you qualified for states.
To be involved in that many things, too, how do you find time? I mean, time management is such an important asset. I tried to impart that. Talk about the importance of that.
Right. Well, freshman and sophomore year, I definitely didn't make sleep a priority, and I saw how that negatively affected my running. But junior and senior year, I pulled it together in that way, and I think getting a lot of sleep was key to this track season. I do a lot of work on the weekends, so that way on weeknights I can go to track, go home, do my homework, maybe visit my gram, and then get to bed at a decent time. That's like the daily routine.
How many people do you think miss that step? I think of me being an athlete in high school, and I never slept. And I never would have thought, oh, well, hey, here's the problem. Do you think there's a lot of athletes who aren't sleeping enough?
Definitely.
And a negative effect, I'm sure. And you didn't want to give up any of the clubs? I mean, you're all interested in that. There was never
Freshman year, I was very ambitious, and just anything I heard over the loudspeaker, I'm like, oh, that sounds fun. That sounds like something I'd like. And I just started going to the meetings and never stopped. And this year, I just wanted to finish it out.
That's making the most out of your high school career.
We were just talking about all these great athletes who, are great representatives of the school. You are definitely one of them with a lot of your teammates, I'm sure, as well. We were talking with your coaches, and we were talking about when they were younger and that, and how track was a great way just for athletes to stay in shape, and that's how it was marketed a lot. You seemed like you're a runner through and through. I mean, was that always your sport?
Well, I have no hand-eye coordination, so I've tried everything. I did rec basketball, little league, soccer, swimming, and I was just terrible at everything. But the one thing I was good at was running. Like I could never hit the ball, but I could pinch run. So once I was old enough to do cross country, I started running cross country and then track in 7th grade.
What was your war sports moment in any of those other sports? Do you have an embarrassing moment where you're like, wow, I'm really bad at soccer?
Probably 9 through 11 years of Little League. When I was 9, 10, and 11, I didn't hit the ball at all.
That was it? Just strikeout.
Just all 3 years.
My Little League story, Dave, was, I'll share this and then we'll start talking about you because you're the reason we're here. My first day of Little League, I ran the first base, second base, and then I ran to the outfield, climbed the fence, and hid in my mom's back seat of her van, and I never played baseball again. It was really embarrassing. I asked that first question about your down moments because you had a lot of very good moments this year. Take us to the qualifying for states. Was this your first time qualifying for states in cross country, or did you do it in the past?
My freshman year we qualified as a team.
Okay.
So in order to do that, you have to win districts overall. So I didn't qualify individually, but I went and raced as a team because I was about 5th on the team.
How to feel this year getting back out there, finishing off your senior season to be able to do it at that highest level?
It was really rewarding, and my other teammate, Katie Ballay, she also qualified, so we at least had each other. Ideally, we would have loved if the whole girls team went and won overall, but next year they are really, really trying to go for it.
Does that feed your confidence as you come into a track season? You seem like a pretty confident, like a pretty good head on your shoulders, but do you come into track season then feeling pretty good, saying, all right, went to states and cross country, let's carry this over, or is your body still recovering a little bit?
Well, I put a lot of work in over the winter. I joined the Y, and I got into lifting.
Okay.
Which you wouldn't think a distance runner that's important, but I thought it was important to try and run one day, maybe do some biking another day, and lift another day. And I had my own schedule that I made up, and I did it I took 3 weeks off after cross country and then started training for track.
Another thing that I think high school students really don't understand the importance of is nutrition too. Talk about how big that is for a high school athlete.
Well, I actually had an issue. I became a vegetarian at the start of 10th grade, and then I ran into anemia problems, but I got that under control. The sleep part of that helped go back to that, and I was on an iron pill for a while. So yeah, definitely nutrition's a big part.
I think
for
lots
runners,
of high school
staying
athletes.
hydrated.
Did you figure out the vegetarian thing, or are you still vegetarian? Because I'm going home to grill up some Beyond Meat burgers after this presentation we're doing. So you still were able to balance
Yes,
that?
I'm still a vegetarian, and I still plan on being a vegetarian. That's something that's important to me. I get my protein in other ways.
Yeah, my wife's a dietitian who's a vegetarian. She's like, people always ask me, where do I get my protein from? And she's
there's
like,
lots of things. Bean burgers, greens, tempeh, soy.
So are you planning to run in college?
I hope to run in college. I'm going to St. Joe's University, and they're D1, so I just emailed the coach, and I'm waiting on a response.
Sarah, keep doing your thing. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you for coming here.
All right, we're back with another Hazleton area athlete now, Jillian Bookman, doing some of the sprints. I'm happy to have you here today. We talked with Sarah a little bit and some of your coaches about how track is very much, it's on the athletes, a lot of it. The coaches are there and that, but it's how much is knowing your body and knowing when to stop. And did you have to learn that over the years, or were you always just kind of good at that?
I mean, yeah, I definitely had to learn how much endurance I have and what kind of pace I can push early on and what I have at the end, because I definitely need it in the last 100 of the 400. And I really have to know when to kick it in and when not to. So.
How'd you get into sprinting and all that? How did you eventually get into all these events and get into track and field? What's your background a little bit?
Well, I play field hockey too and track, and I've started ever since 7th grade. And I don't know, I guess I just kind of have speed, so there's a little bit of speed.
So did they approach you, or you were a field hockey player, and then they were like, hey, you're pretty fast. Who talked to you? I mean, how'd you get on the track team?
Well, I've always thought my parents were just you're pretty fast, so like why don't you try it for the track team? So I was like, okay. So 7th grade I did it, and then I actually had Coach Conti as a coach in 7th grade, and she was like, wow, you're pretty fast. Like why don't we try you in like the 1 and 2? And I was like, okay. And I mean I did like well, so I mean it just kind of stuck. Like.
When I'm going to keep telling stories about myself today, Dave. We have all of your kids we're talking about and the Kenny Kara show here. But when I played soccer, that was the one thing I had going for me. I was fast. I didn't necessarily know how to dribble or anything, but I just went out there, just ran around. Is track the place where you can just let that fly, just go and be, I don't want to say undisciplined with the speed, but you just kind of let it go?
Oh, yeah, it's all out, all the time.
Just go.
All out, yep, just
yeah.
go. Fast as you can to the end, yeah.
That's the philosophy.
Yep.
That really is. There's no like, hey, I'm going to start up here. You're just going.
It's go, keep your form, and just fast as you can. That's basically what it is.
Did you have to learn form? So there we go. Was there a little bit of form? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. With your arms, pump your arms, everything like that. Open your stride, things like that.
Has that changed how you played field hockey a little bit or no? Because you have the stick in your hand. So.
A little bit, yeah. But it's definitely like opened my strides up more, and I can get to the ball faster than someone else now because of my form, I guess. But.
That's pretty cool.
Well, it's nice to have that. You have track in the off season for your field hockey. I mean, what would you be doing if you weren't doing track right now? I mean, that's probably playing field hockey on a travel team somewhere. Do you play travels?
Yeah, I do. I play for Electric Surge.
Mr. Kostick brought up, one of the coaches, that it's good sometimes to walk away from your main sport and do something else. Would you agree with that? That it's good kind of to put the stick down for a little bit and be like,
it's good to take time off. Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, if you're playing 2 at a time, you're more prone to injuries and stuff like that. So that's what my parents said. Like they just said, take a little bit of time off, focus on one thing, right? Yeah, exactly.
Definitely.
Exactly.
Is field? I don't want to say your primary, so you probably love both. But I mean, do you see is field hockey like the sport that you want to keep continuing into, or track, or is it kind of both right now? Is that an unfair question?
Yeah, no.
You don't want to answer because the track's behind us. I mean.
No, I like both, but I'm thinking more field hockey wise because. Right, because I mean I have a few like offers right now, so I'm thinking more that's what I'm gonna do when I go into college. But I mean, I love track too, so I don't know. I can't really choose.
Either or.
I was going to say, how long before you get into the track mode? I mean, we're impacted by weather here a lot too, but you say you play field hockey in the winter, then you get into track practice. How long before you're in that? Like, okay, I'm ready to go start a meet. How long does that take?
I mean, not long. Transitioning from field hockey to track, I mean, it's not too different, but I mean, I don't know. And then like before a meet, I guess I just kind of like get in the zone, I stretch, warm up and everything like that. It doesn't take too long.
You mentioned stretching and warming up, and I think it was Coach, and it was in the standard speaker, that they have to slow you down a little bit. Was it you? They have to tell you, what does that mean? Like, what are you doing during warm-ups and that, where they're like, Jillian, calm down?
Well, I'm told all the time, like, you can ask anybody here, I stretch so much. Like, that's, like, the thing for me. Like, I'm always stretching and warming up because, I don't know, I guess that's where I channel, like, my, anxiety a little bit into when I'm nervous. I have to make sure, like, my body's completely, like, I know where I'm sore or I know where I need to stretch more or something. But yeah, they always tell me all the time, just relax, just sit down for a second. And I'm like, I can't because I don't get tight.
So do you call yourself hyper?
Yeah, I'm a little.
Are you like that? Is that your personality? I mean, are you always or is your personality more calm actually?
It's a little bit more calm, but I mean, before competitions, like I get a little hyper. Some excited, some nervous.
But I assume in those events where you are going so fast that you can feel just a little thing. Like if you feel something that is tight in your leg, you're like, this is really bad.
Right.
Have you had that though? What do you do if it's right before a race? You just have to go with it?
No, just kind of go into it. Yeah. I mean, that's what my hamstring's been like bothering me a little bit, and I know that going into the race, it's kind of like that already. But I mean, if it feels too bad, then obviously like I wouldn't.
Yeah,
run,
push it,
but right, I wouldn't
yourself,
do too much. But yeah, definitely, like I don't know, I just kind of feel it out.
Has track taught you anything about field hockey or sports in general? Was there anything you took away from doing track that, or just athletics in general, that you use now maybe in field hockey, a mindset, a runner's mindset or something?
I don't know.
No, not really.
I mean, the competition, I guess.
Yeah. Because running always relaxed me. Like, it was kind of a relaxing thing for me. So I would take that into, like, soccer. I'd be like, all right, well, I'm kind of chill.
I don't think she relaxes.
No, you didn't. No, not really. So when the competition's there,
When the competition's there, I'm always in the zone a little bit.
When you go against, like, you're in a district meet or a big-time meet or something, can you sense there are better competitors there? Do you actually follow other racers throughout the season, look at their times, and it's like, I'm in a big meet?
I do, a little bit. I try
not
to do it too much to get in my head, but, yeah, I definitely know who's who. I do look, definitely.
Does having faster people in the race push you a little bit more? I remember talking with Danny Burlitz in swimming, and he always talked about that. He could not wait until there were faster swimmers with him because he knew that was just going to push him.
Yes, especially like even yesterday in the 400. I mean, even on Friday at the Invitational. I love going at invitationals because then I get to see the competition and see girls who are faster and who are better, and it just pushes me because I got to see, like, I already know what I got to do in order to do that at districts.
Do you take a note on that when you talk about form or anything? Can you look at other runners and be like, okay, or is it just kind of goes so fast it doesn't really matter, and you have your thing?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see, what the number one thing that I notice is their pace. Like, I see if they have a kick at the end or if someone doesn't, so I can catch them by surprise or not. And I take that into, I guess, districts too, because if I know a girl can't kick it in the end and I can, then I take advantage of that.
All right, well, Jillian, thank you so much for your time. Good luck rest of the way, and I guess keep stretching and not too much. Here now with Ramdi Melendez, and you're a senior, a sprinter, just won the Wyoming Valley Conference Division I Championship. Congratulations. How did that feel, man? You said it took off. You guys just felt, what was it like after you won the championship?
After winning the championship, it was real emotional. It was just a great team win. We've been together all season. We've been working for this undefeated season since last year, been mentally preparing, everything, just staying together, staying locked in, staying focused. It was a great win. It was a great season. It was great.
Chasing a team like Dallas that's also undefeated, is it so hard to keep the pressure? And I know you guys, I don't want to say weren't challenged, but I mean, you really beat a lot of teams pretty good. But is it hard to have that focus always, to be like, we know we have to be perfect to keep up with Dallas?
Sometimes, no. I mean, we never talked about our record. It was never a topic of conversation. We just went out, we handled our business, we went about everything professionally. One thing I always tell everybody, after the meets, we would talk about, what are our times, what was the other team's times. It was just like, you know what, forget it, stay locked in, on to the next one. And that was just our mentality the whole season.
So you never looked at Dallas's record and maybe in another newspaper you might see?
I mean, you always have to check on other teams just to see the times that they're running, just to know what you're up against, just an idea. But we never really looked into their record or the teams, specific stats. It was just, we heard about it, stay updated with it, of course, because it's your competition. But no, we never really worried about it. Just came in and handled business.
How fun is it, though? I mean, Coach Gunderman talks about having fun at track practice, too. How fun is track?
I mean, at first, I hated it because I never liked running. It's your lungs are burning, everything's hurting. It's like hell almost. But once you start getting around to it, you're working hard. You're noticing that you're getting better progress. You're winning. When you're winning, of course, everything's better when you're winning. So, yeah. Definitely the win factor is what helped me just stay in and get locked in.
And how important, too, you have guys like Kyle and Warren, guys you played basketball with, too. I mean, you're all doing the same event.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Those are my guys right there, Running with them last year and then just coming into the season, it was like I didn't miss a second with them. So it was just when we were on the court, it was like we were thinking the same things, It was, yeah.
How did you adapt going from basketball to track? Did you always have the talent, or was there something you kind of had them off? Like you said, you just kind of tried to go fast maybe at first, and then lessons learned to get to be a better track athlete?
I played basketball, and I did all right. Running was just always a thing. Like I was always fast. Yeah, I was just always fast at running sprints, doing everything. My dad always told me to do it, try it out, So I did, and I was all right for it. I'm going to college. It's getting me to college, going to Mansfield University for it. So I'm thankful that I tried it out and did it.
So thanks, Dad. Coach Gunderman, everyone keeps saying, we have fun here, and he's using that to sell the program. Is that true? Let's ask one of the athletes. Is there fun?
Very true. Very true. I love every single guy out here. Right? From the top to the bottom, every single one that's here. It's just a great family vibe. Everybody knows each other. Everybody talks to each other. Nothing to be scared of. It's just we just come out here and we just enjoy each other and we just have fun. We enjoy the moment because we know that you won't have a lot of them with everybody else.
So you might be an ambassador for the program then, when you see younger kids in junior high now.
For sure. Hey, if you're in junior high and you want to run, come to the track and field. Promise it's going to be the best experience you ever have in high school. For sure.
Last thing I want to ask, I think this 4x1 relay team is pretty good, right? This was the one I think I was reading about with Steve Stallone, thinking about states maybe and everything.
For sure.
Talk about that team. You guys have been together a while. Pretty confident.
Yeah. It's me. For now, our squad that we ran was me, Michael Bradley, Dalis Rodriguez, and Henry Polanco. Henry, this is his first year running, first and last year as a senior, but that boy is fast. He's fast. So once he came into the mix and we ran it at the Tamako Invitational. We ran a 44-2 with pretty bad handoffs. The handoffs weren't great. We ran a 44-2 and we were just surprised. We were shocked. And once we saw that, we knew that we were in for something special, for sure.
Well, Ramsey, thank you so much for your time. Good luck rest of the way, and thank you all for watching and listening to this edition of Good Sports with Dave and Ken. Dave, what a trip to the track, Hazleton Area High School track, and I felt like I went to practice. We were there for a while, learned a lot of interesting things. We're back in the studio if you're watching us. If you're listening, I'm telling you that right now. But I felt it was important for us to come back and talk a little postscript because Abby Hengst, who was brought up several times during the podcast, goes to districts and ends up winning a gold medal there. Just an outstanding performance, and I believe Steve Stallone covered it for the Standard Speaker. And the quotes in that article, we were doing our Good Sports Moment of the Week. I'm stealing this one. I want this for it because just a bunch of her quotes, it was just so genuine. And she told Steve, I was pretty shocked when the official said 134. I teared up a little bit. You know, just sometimes you don't think of that, the emotion these athletes have after working so hard, and just the emotion of feeling so good knowing that it's paying off right now. So that's a nice story coming off of our interviews at the track.
Yeah, I mean, you go into a track meet, you think about all the work you put in, not only during the season but before the season, workouts, and there's some days you don't want to work out really. I mean, you think that's the last thing on your mind, to go and throw a javelin on a rainy morning, or a cold morning in March, or a cold afternoon in March, and you've been sitting in school all day, then to get to the track. But then when you get that reward, you know, eventually you get that reward at the end of the season, and that's when it matters. And then to know you're going to the States as a freshman. Abby Hengst has a lot to be proud of. Their coaching staff, Coach G, we talked to Coach G too, and you know, Coach G does a fabulous job. You know, I'm one of his biggest fans. I have been for years, and he just keeps, you know, churning out all these top flight throwers, and he has another one in Abby Hengst, and I'm sure he's delighted that he's going to have her for the next 3 seasons as well.
I wanted to really bring her up too because I think it's fun. The coaches, and he brought her up without us asking. He just said, if I can, I think, if you go back and listen to the podcast a little bit, and mentioned her, and so did one other coach. I think it was Mark Otterbein. Dave, a good sports moment for you? I mean, off the top of your head, you think of anything?
Well, I think like we talked to Sarah Myers during the podcast too. Somebody who you know, who gets involved too, who shows you know a lot of talk in our school district here in Hazleton that, you know, it's a big school district. It's too big, but you know, I always told my kids this, and other student athletes that are you know people that I know in the neighborhood, in the community. I said, you make it smaller by getting involved in things too. Like, you want to be a part of a team, whether it's basketball, whether it's the arts, whether it's any kind of community based group. You want to get involved in something. That school has a lot to offer, and for Sarah Myers to be involved, and I was thinking, and I'm dating myself here, like an old Brady Bunch episode when Marsha Brady joined every single club on her first day of school, and she wasn't able to handle it, but and she stayed with the one that she really liked. In Sarah Myers, in her case, she's been involved in a lot of different things throughout her high school career. She's a leader in that school community, and when she graduates this year, she's going to leave a big void because an outstanding young person. I was thrilled to get a chance to meet her. You know, sports was just an extracurricular activity, just one of her many activities, and I think she's a shining example for the rest of the student body.
Yeah, she made that school very small. If you talk about just getting involved in a club, making it smaller and smaller and smaller, she did a lot. Well, it was a pleasure being at the Hazleton Area High School track. Thank you for having us to the girls and boys teams there. And if you want to hear more from Dave, he's on frequently on Community and EPA News on SSP TV. And of course, you can read all of his work in the Standard Speaker and at standardspeaker.com.